Hey, what is up guys, and welcome back to another initial focus video, and this one is something a little different. Sure, when a product comes out, we a lot of the times will do a review, maybe a 1 month review, maybe a 6 month review, and every once in a while you'll see a 1 year review. But I wanted to break out and brush the dust off of my OnePlus 2 and see if it was still worth the buy. So the OnePlus 2 came out about 2 years ago. This past year was all about the OnePlus 3 and the OnePlus 3T. So right when I got it out of the box, of course I had some updating to do since it's pretty much existed in the box for the past year and a half, ever since I got the OnePlus 3. Now that I got it out of the box and all updated, it is now running Android 6.0.1 and Oxygen OS 3.5.6, just in case you want to know the latest operating system for the OnePlus 2. Now this is honestly a very easy phone to jump back to, especially with Oxygen OS. To be honest, it's a very similar feel to the Google Pixel and Nougat in certain ways. Sure, the app launcher is still a bit different, but you have cards on Google's end, and OnePlus has what they, I believe, still call the shelf, which allows you to put widgets and your most recently used apps and things like that. Honestly, running around the operating system, this is still a very capable phone. Pretty speedy, it's not really sluggish in any way. I was perfectly fine the past couple of days that I've been using this over my Google Pixel. It's definitely not as fast as the latest phones of today, but you're definitely not going to, I don't think, be too upset for average use. One thing that pretty much all recent OnePlus phones have, in my opinion, been one of the best at is the fast fingerprint reading, and the OnePlus 2 is no exception. Even in 2017, the fingerprint reader is insanely fast. To go from completely asleep to up and ready to go in definitely under a second, and just very fast. Now, I do love the gestures that also come on the OnePlus 2. One of my favorite was always the tap to wake. So even when the screen is completely off and the phone is asleep, you can just simply lightly double tap and it wakes up so you can see notifications. As well as if you double tap to open the camera, that too is pretty quick. Earlier tonight, I was just going to take some photos while I was riding my skateboard, and I kept opening it up and closing it and opening it up, and it is very fast. To go from the home screen to the camera app to then completing taking a picture, there definitely is some shutter lag once you actually hit the shutter button. Again, it's not the fastest camera ever, but it's still pretty decent. In terms of feel, I love the feeling of this phone. Now, it's definitely a little thicker, and even at the time, it was thicker than a lot of smartphones coming out, but that's so they could fit a bigger battery in there, and I was all for that. It also is a little bit because it has a removable back, not necessarily to access the battery, but so you can change backs. And I'm a big fan of, I kind of have been missing the sandstone feel. You just feel confident holding it in your hand without any case on. The OnePlus 2 also came out with USB Type-C. I don't believe it was the first one by any means, but it definitely was a new type of port for phones during this time period. So when it was announced that USB Type-C would be supported on this phone, I think for the most part people were pretty happy. I'm sure there were still some people angry because, again, it was at the time of micro USB still being the main port for phones, but the fact that it is USB Type-C means that in 2017, where most of our devices are becoming USB Type-C, phones, laptops, tablets, other everything, it's nice that you can still use your modern day cords for this nearly 1.5 to 2 year old phone. Now, going back to the camera a little bit, pictures are actually still pretty fantastic. Decent HDR exposure. I took some sunset photos. I remember it wasn't the best in low light situations, but it definitely takes some pretty good pictures, and I think definitely still stacks up to a lot of budget phones of today. Panoramas looked amazing, and you can even go, I believe, a full 360. This panorama that I'll shoot up right now, boop, isn't nearly any of that. It was only like a third of the way across before I finished my composition. The only part of the camera that definitely, I think, lacks behind in terms of comparing to modern day smartphones is the image stabilization, which it has optical image stabilization, so that disappoints me a little bit, and the autofocus. Now, the image stabilization, honestly, I had to re-look up if this even had it, because when I was reviewing the footage, I wasn't that impressed. And even things like the Google Pixel, which just does it digitally, looks 100 times better than this does. But it definitely looks better than the OnePlus One, which didn't have any sort of optical image stabilization. So it was an improvement at the time, but of course, a year and a half, 2 years later, other smartphones are a lot better at stabilization. Now, the autofocus isn't terrible, and it's just not the fastest, especially after using things like the Galaxy S7 and the Note 5. Those are just fantastic and incredibly fast focusing phones. So this doesn't compare to that, but I will say slower autofocus devices don't bug me as much as phones that have the jittery focusing. If you have to, if you move to a different subject and it almost like gives that little jitter where you can tell it's a autofocus and it's not someone manually turning the lens, that annoys the heck out of me way more than any slow focus. And I'm happy to say that the OnePlus 2 still does not have the jittery focusing. It is a bit slower, but it is a natural focus pull or push from one subject to another, so at least it looks realistic, like a manual lens or something. So I'm very pleased with the camera overall. Now again, I did talk about the thicker design to hold a bigger battery. This has a 3300 milliamp battery, which is still bigger than any iPhone and even a lot of other phones in the modern day. And this thing sips battery. I've always been very pleased with how Oxygen OS and OnePlus optimizes their software and hardware to work together to help optimize for a better battery life experience. And even though my physical phone, this is the phone that I got within the first month or so of the phone being out, the battery is still amazing. I don't know exactly how many cycle counts are on this phone, but I used it for a long time, if any of you are long-time subscribers of this channel. And yeah, that is pretty much it, guys. I really just wanted to get this kind of out of the box and see if a 2-year-old budget smartphone could still live up to modern day smartphones. And if you ask me, I think this is still a great phone to buy if you're looking at it. Now, OnePlus doesn't sell directly anymore, but it is on Amazon for around $300. There was some around $250, $260 I saw, and then sometimes I saw it for around $320. So you may ask yourself, you can get the OnePlus 3 for around that price, or at least not that much more. So before you comment down below, why would you buy this before blah, 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 I don't know. Maybe you just like the look of the OnePlus 2 better, or maybe you find a really good deal on it. And speaking of good deals, I am actually selling this OnePlus 2. I'm not giving it away, but I am selling it for $150. That's right, I'm selling it for $150. This thing is in absolute, I'm gonna go all salesy now. This thing is in absolute mint condition, and I'm gonna sell it with all the accessories I have. The only thing I'm not selling with it, I'm not getting rid of this, I'm sorry. So if you wanna pay like $1,000, I'll give this with it. But yeah, so $150, still have all the box and packaging. If you are international and you want it, I am going to have to ask for more shipping. We'll talk. Just message me on any of my social platforms. My email address is linked in the description below, as well as you can DM me on Twitter, Instagram, anything like that. But yeah, so it's a fantastic phone, and again, I'm not just saying that because I'm selling it. I don't care if you buy it or not. Overall, it's just a fantastic phone, and even as time goes on, I can see it being a even better smartphone that lives up for at least a couple other years to come. So yeah, thanks so much for watching, guys, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.